Tuesday. Good morning.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Good morning. It's garbage day. That's my Tuesday.
Do you know what the funny thing is I was just going to ask you, it's like, is it your garbage day? Because mine is tomorrow. And for some odd reason, I thought it would be important information. I guess we're on the same page then, eh?
It's like, we should be grateful that we don't have to, like, I don't know. I'm so happy that somebody just, like, comes and deals with that, because I don't have to. And that's the only thing about society that I'm stoked about.
Fucking starting things on a high note.
Sorry?
I said you're starting things off on a high note again. It's funny.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Totally. Last night, my neighbor, like, as I was pulling weeds, my neighbor came out and was like, you just kind of need to deal with all of this. As I was, like, dealing with all of it, and that immediately made me like, well, I guess I'm not dealing with this anymore. And then I just went inside because I don't want to deal with that anymore.
That was a good stubborn teenager move,
Sorry?
eh? I said, that's a good stubborn teenager move. You really taught that neighbor.
Talk to me. What reason? Don't approach me while I'm in my yard. Are you kidding me?
You should have just asked. It's like, hey, you know what? I could use a hand. Why don't you come on over here?
You're right. That would have been the far bigger move. This morning, we're going live with our very good friend Christina Bennian. I'm very excited to talk to her about the, like, butterfly hatchery that she's been sort of running.
Yeah, she's had some pretty interesting projects over the last couple of years, honestly. So, we'll chat with her about some of that stuff and some of the crazy things that have happened with her during COVID. And really, it's just a fun chat today again. So before we get to that,
but before we
go ahead.
Jump right into that, I have picked another video from the AVB sort of backlog. We're going to be revisiting once more Soul Brother Mike and the Family Soul, A Love So Nice.
We set?
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, Soul Brother Mike and his Family Soul.
I've known still bring feelings. Some things change while some don't seem to. But your love's so nice, never fails to put words back on my blank papers. Work with me and chill on vapors. Girl, you know I'm so selective. But your love, I want it protected, yeah. All I found, love so nice, so nice, so nice, so nice, so nice, baby. Never thought I'd find love so
Good morning. That was Soul Brother Mike and the Family Soul. And now we are joined by Miss Christina Bennian. How are you doing today?
Oh, great.
First of all, let's talk.
Hair.
Your hair looks great, but I love that planter that you got there with the mustache. It looks to me
just like Josh. So
I was just gonna say
it's
it's like Josh is with us in spirit, even though he can't.
Yeah,
be.
exactly.
Holding, is that a huge aloe?
Yeah.
Right. My wife can't
sure
seem
is.
to, or I shouldn't even say my wife. I mean, we can't seem to keep aloe alive in our house, and I have no idea why. It's like seems to be the easiest plant, but it's the plant that dies first in our house. So.
What plant do you have, Six? What's that behind you?
That's a snake plant.
Thank you. That's a snake plant. Yeah. And if Taryn was watching right now and being, a really great partner, she would have mentioned that right away really fast. But yeah, it's a snake plant. And
we have a good morning from Bronwyn. Who
Hi,
says,
Bronwyn.
there you go.
I love Bronwyn.
We all love Bronwyn. Did you catch the episode we did with her a couple days ago?
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
That was a great chat. One of my favorites, actually.
Sorry to disappoint earlier, Kara.
No. This is already another one of my favorites because you're here and we get to hang out and talk about like beautiful plants and gardens and stuff. Which actually leads me into my burning question, Christina. Can you please talk to me and sort of everybody about your butterfly garden?
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, where do you want me to start with that? Because it's been like a long journey.
Who made it?
Well, so
Who made it for you? Who made the little butterfly hut thing first? And
This year's butterfly hut is from my sweet Uncle Danny. He can make literally anything, and so I called him one day and I said I had to get rid of my old butterfly hut because it was falling apart. And he made, I was just expecting something I could put on the ground in my sunroom, and he made this double-decker butterfly hotel that's on legs and everything. So it's really pretty. I can turn the camera for a second. It's right here.
Oh, hell yeah. Sweet.
That's crazy. So you just go around and you collect your little caterpillars and toss them in there, and then they grow from there.
Yeah, so I kind of started this with my kindergartens 8 years ago. I teach kindergarten in LaSalle, and I started that with them 8 years ago, but it started out with butterfly kits, you'd order them. And so you'd order these butterfly kits, it would come up with everything you need, and we could watch the whole life cycle in the classroom. But I did some research, and I found that introducing butterflies into our ecosystem that aren't necessarily from this area is not great for the environment. So I switched over to creating my own butterfly garden in my backyard. And every year I make it bigger and bigger, and much to Josh's dismay, it keeps taking over more sections of our backyard. And and eventually I started collecting my own caterpillars, monarchs and swallowtails, and bringing them into the classroom and watching the kids go through the cycle that way instead, and then releasing them into our ecosystem. So it's just better for the environment.
Can we talk a little bit about sort of the process of going to collect caterpillars? So I remember joining you a couple weeks ago at the community garden, sort of looking for caterpillars, and still we didn't find any, but things.
Yeah, okay. Well, I started planting a lot of pollinator attractors. So most of my garden space, my herb garden, the rest of it is basically all to attract pollinators, bees, butterflies, everything. So a lot of caterpillars I find in my own backyard. On the dill plants, I find swallowtails. You can also plant fennel, rue, lovage, Queen Anne's lace, all that stuff for swallowtails. I mostly stick to dill. And then also for my monarchs, I plant a whole bunch of milkweed. And I'll go around all the leaves in my yard with a magnifying glass and just find every single egg or tiny caterpillar I can find, and then I just bring them in. And I have different processes. When they're very tiny caterpillars or eggs, I have them in little containers in my house. And once they get bigger, I move them into this butterfly hotel my uncle made. And then if I'm not finding a lot at my house, I will go to community gardens or outdoor spaces that I can find for them. There's different spaces you can go to. I help watering and taking care of the Drouillard Community Garden, Fort City Community Garden. So I go there to look a lot too.
You've stole some. Actually, I think Taryn has dropped off some of the ones that were on our dill plant for you. Yeah.
Yes, Taryn has donated me some caterpillars.
Man, those caterpillars eat the dill plants like crazy. So like literally
Yes.
having a place to take them to and be productive and proactive with trying to keep your dill. I was going to ask you to kind of list off what those what the butterfly gardens were, but you did, and that's awesome because they aren't a lot of plants. Like you don't have to go out of your way to be planting something crazy for butterflies. It's literally just kind of put back what nature wanted in this area and watch them flourish. And then
and the nice thing is you can do a lot of like native species, and it thrives in this climate. So I have a bunch of native species, and the butterflies love them. And like if you go into my backyard at any given time, you'll probably find a few butterflies there floating around.
That's so nice.
how long is
quick caveat? Sorry, a segue before we continue on. We got another hello from Jeffrey Kerr. So hello, Jeffrey. Thank you so much for joining us. But go ahead, Six.
What's that kind of gestation period from like a little tiny egg to let's choose monarch because it's just easier to talk about one to having them in a chrysalis and then kind of like fluttering away?
I want to say about 6 weeks or so. So basically, like if I collect them in an egg, they'll be in the egg for a few days. And then they're like very tiny caterpillars, like you can barely see them. And when I point them out to people, they're always surprised that I can find them. But once you know what you're looking for, it's easier. And they grow and grow. They go through like about 5 instars, which just means like they're shedding their skin and they're growing. Mm-hmm. And so you'll find like if you look through my butterfly enclosure, you'll find like little pieces of butterfly skin.
Cool.
And they go through their instars, and then eventually they create their chrysalis, and they're in their chrysalis, I want to say, like 10 to 14 days.
And then it only takes a few hours for them to get out, right?
Yeah, not even that long. Like the other day I don't know how long it takes them to get out from what we can't see, but when you're watching them and it cracks, like they're out pretty quick.
Yeah,
I want to say within like 5 minutes of what I could like see with my own eyes.
Yeah, I know. You posted some stuff on Instagram, and I mean, I wouldn't consider myself like an idiot when it comes to butterflies. We've been around some butterfly sanctuaries and stuff, and I just was like, holy crap, those guys like really they come out. They're out and dry their wings off, and it's away you go. I didn't think it was that quick, honestly. It's interesting.
Yeah. Once they come out and they dry their wings, like I usually let them stay for a few hours. You want to make sure their wings are really dry and really strong before you release them outside. But yeah, the actual coming out of the chrysalis is really quick. And I've got to watch a lot of them make their chrysalis too, which is really interesting. Because monarchs hang like in a J formation.
Yeah.
And when they're hanging in their J, it almost looks like they're doing crunches. They're doing these like weird like little movements with their body. And then you can see like their skin cracks open there, and the chrysalis is like inside them.
Oh.
And their skin just like peels away.
I do consider myself sort of an idiot when it comes to butterflies. So please excuse the stoner quality of this next question. But like, what do you think they're thinking about when they're in their little chrysalis?
Okay, that's kind of funny because if you have me on Facebook, you both do, like I post the same thing every year at the beginning of butterfly season about like how they basically turn to goo. Yeah. Inside their chrysalis, and they just like completely reform themselves. Like I just think it's really interesting. I have no idea if they even are thinking or if their brain is melted in that goo. I don't know. I'm not a butterfly expert. I just like to raise them.
No, that's.
But if there's like,
the experts would even be able to tell me what they're thinking about in their chrysalis.
If anyone is interested in butterfly stuff, there's a Facebook group called Monarch Butterfly Enthusiasts of Windsor, Essex.
Oh, cool.
And people talk about swallowtails, monarchs, all kinds of butterflies on there. And there's a man named Leo Silvestri that's like super into saving the butterflies. And he's on that page. I think he started that page. So you can message him and ask him any questions. And we all post our butterfly stuff in there. So there's a lot of like good discussion about how to raise butterflies and stuff.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
We'll post that link for sure in either the description or the comments for anybody who's, interested in following up on butterfly knowledge.
I have something to show you today.
Yes, please.
Okay, so this is a swallowtail chrysalis. They make their chrysalis a little bit different. They attach at like the pad of their bum, and then they go like this way instead of hanging down in a J, and they put like almost like a silk web coming up from their center to attach them to the top.
Cool.
And this one didn't emerge because it got, when it was a caterpillar, a parasitic wasp laid its eggs inside it. And so instead of a caterpillar emerging, a wasp emerged, and that's what it burrowed a hole out instead of cracking itself open.
Well, that's pretty cool.
And that was a sad day at this house.
Yeah, nobody wants a parasitic wasp, but that's still very interesting. An interesting piece of like natural architecture almost, yeah.
Yeah. So I try to get my caterpillars when they're babies, because when they're bigger, it's more of a chance they've been stung by the wasp.
Oh, that's crazy.
Oh,
I didn't know all this.
The wasp will lay their eggs in the living caterpillar?
Yes, and then the caterpillar becomes the host of the larva, and the larva just basically eats the whole inside of the caterpillar with its organs last when it's in the chrysalis.
That's awful.
It is terrible. Yeah, it makes me very sad.
Well, why don't we sort of leave the awful wasps in this moment and sort of transition into talking a little bit about roller derby, unless you have anything else you wanted to address.
No, derby it up.
Let's talk a little bit about derby. You've obviously been missing it a bit since sort of quarantine started.
Yeah, it's been rough. That was like, my outlet for many things. And it's really hard. And I know, Justice, you feel the same. It's really hard not going to practice 2 times a week and seeing your friends and hitting your friends and all the good stuff that comes with derby.
How have you sort of been finding outlet? Like, have you been finding different outlets for that energy?
I got a lot of projects done at my house, so that was cool. I spent less money, did a lot of gardening, and I get to do some social distance skates with my friends from derby, so that's nice.
Yeah, that is nice.
We've been watching some of your social distance skates. 2 crazy things have happened to you since this. I know you know what I'm talking about. You witnessed like a crazy bone break.
Yeah.
So first of all, skate parks, wear the correct equipment, wear a helmet, wear pads, and no matter what you wear and no matter how safe you are, accidents happen.
Yes.
So you guys are on roller skates as opposed to skateboards or inline skates. And, I guess I'm going to kind of segue into or explain this a bit myself. I mean, it's harder on something like that. I mean, on a skateboard, we can jump off if we end up on the wrong line. With inline skates, it's sometimes a little bit easier to correct because it is only a series of single line of skates or wheels. But when you guys get the wrong kind of angle on roller skates, what can happen?
Well, I mean, you touched on it. I witnessed one of my really good friends from derby break her leg, and she's getting better every day. She's posting videos, and we get to see her progress. So now she's starting to put a little pressure on it and walk a little bit. But that was pretty brutal to watch. And we've watched all of our friends fall and hit stuff and have huge bruises. But that was the worst injury I've seen at the skate park.
Yeah, seeing bones come out. Sorry if anybody's enjoying their breakfast right now, but seeing bones outside of the skin isn't generally something that one human wants to see of another human.
Yes.
And it's crazy. I used to do body piercing and tattooing, and I'd kick right into this, I need to help. And I could shut everything off, and I'd be able to kind of move in and help or do whatever I could in those situations. Just recently, my wife fell on her bike and ended up with a crazy big hematoma, and
oh yeah,
something about it, man. I don't know. I'm 47. I'm getting a little bit soft, but I don't want to see blood anymore, and I don't want to see big injuries. I don't know what it is, but I'm definitely not the person that would help out in a skate park anymore. I'd probably be the person going ew and holding back.
I called 911 for her when that happened. There was a few of us there, so the other 2 kind of jumped to sit with her, and I called 911 and I skated away from her because at that point she hadn't seen her leg. She knew it was broken, but I didn't want to say in front of her the bone is sticking out. So. Yeah. I got to escape for a minute to make that phone call, which was important. But also, this is funny because I play a lot of contact sports, but I'm a bit of a fainter. So I had to not look at her for a bit.
Yeah. I've noticed that my daughter, who is 8, is a fainter, but I think a lot of kids are. But man, I dropped a beer can on my toe yesterday and it was bleeding, and Armin, he's like, "Can you go put a Band-Aid on that? I can't see it." And it's even the smallest bit of blood. Yeah, fainters it can get scary in those situations, hey? You're there,
and
you're there to help, and then you end up on the ground,
Yeah. she's a very talented skater. She's been skating for a long time too. Like, this is her 10-year derby anniversary this year. Like, it's not someone who just went to the skate park and didn't know what they were doing. So this can literally happen to anybody. You have to be careful and just kind of know the risk.
Yeah, this is I think an important lesson for people to learn is, it can happen at any level, and it can happen doing anything, even if you're padded in a park. I mean, it's a known risk. And after me skateboarding for so many years and, racing and being in skate parks, I've witnessed some pretty crazy things happen to very experienced skaters. Always wear your helmet, man. Always wear your helmet when you skate. Very bad things can happen if you're not. From one crazy thing to another, you have amazing backyard projects. Last year or the year before, you also had chicks, but you were building a deck this year, and more crazy fate happened to you.
A lot of crazy things keep happening to me, yeah. So Josh and I, for anyone who doesn't know, Josh is my partner. Josh and I, our deck is very old. And, my parents came over because they hadn't seen us in a while for a social distance visit a while ago. And, we were sitting in my backyard, and Josh casually mentioned that there was a board that was kind of soggy and maybe rotten. So he was going to replace it. And if anyone knows my dad, you don't ever mention anything that you want to fix or tweak or replace, because he will make it an entire project that he wants to completely redo. It happened with a downstairs bathroom at my house, my kitchen,
I was in that downstairs bathroom very recently, and it's very cute and very nice. I had a wonderful experience.
But that used to be just a toilet in the corner of the room. So my dad is a wizard, but me and Josh made the mistake of casually mentioning that we were going to replace one board in the deck, and it turned into an entire new deck, which is beautiful. But halfway through the project, there's a tree in the back alley, which is technically on city property, and I had told them, there's a monarch flying right by my window right now. Sorry. Squirrel. So we had told the city, I don't even know how many times, that the tree in the back and the tree in the front, which are both on city property, are very dead. And that's my cat, I'm sorry. And the day that we were out there almost finishing up the deck, the tree in the back decided to fall towards my house. It was a normal day. There was no storm. There was no wind. And it fell right through my fence and into my backyard. And I was inside at the time working from home because I was teaching. And I just heard this loud crash and screaming. And I ran outside. And Josh and my dad were right up against the sun porch. And the tree took over my whole yard. You couldn't see anything.
It was a pretty scary photo when I saw what you had posted on Instagram, and then when we talked about it, a pretty scary event. We have a couple of big trees and bigger trees that are now, when you started talking about Josh's, post-traumatic stress, post-tree stress syndrome that he was getting and being nervous around trees, I started looking at all the city trees along our street. And then we had the big storm, and literally 2 days ago we had to take a picture. We had to send it to 311. They have an app, so for anybody wondering, get the 311 app, take your pictures, send it in, keep doing that.
Put an asterisk on that. The 311 app, besides being an incredibly useful tool for sharing with the city your issues, it's also hilarious because you can see everybody else's issues.
Yeah.
So if you are curious about what's going on in the city and what your neighbors have to say about what's going on, please, dear God, get the 311 app.
I did not know that feature of the app.
It's so funny. Yeah. It's like a Facebook feed of just people complaining about stuff to the city. It's art, truly.
Yeah, it is a full public complaint forum, but we had to post because a tree out front, literally, again, good sized branch came down, and luckily there was no car parked, but came down on the curb, cracked a little bit. So we had to take a few pictures, and I started to look at that tree, and I was like, wow, there's some big branches right over our house. So yeah, we called 311 because you don't think that sort of stuff is going to happen. I mean, it is a full-on accident. It's a nature thing, and it doesn't even have to be windy. Carpenter ants can do a hell of a job on the inside of trees and rot them away. But when I saw that, it blew me away, and I was glad to hear that everybody was happy. And I was just kind of thinking, I'm like, what's Christina's luck? It usually happens in threes, right? It usually happens in threes. Do we have a third?
Well, I'm hoping that like it came in threes, like in terms of the derby community and not like me personally, because Kate broke her leg, the tree fell in my backyard and destroyed my whole yard, could have killed my dad and Josh, broke all my dad's tools, and then a tree fell on Boomy's car, who you interviewed like last week.
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah, so I think that's three, and like we're good as long as it's like Derby Collective and not like us all personally.
That's good thinking. That's hopeful thinking, eh?
It's or that's the loophole, and you've just willed yourself into that situation. You've called it. You've put the label on it, and that's what it is now.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Sold. Solid. Done. So coming up to kind of where we like to sort of start winding down, we like to kind of ask, what do you do sort of every day to keep yourself optimistic? You know, times are tumultuous.
That's a good question. I spend a lot of time, more time than I should, watching Netflix and Crave and things like that. Rewatching RuPaul's Drag Race a ton. I garden a lot. I ride my bike a lot. I try to roller skate as much as I can. I go to the community garden and help take care of that spot. Makes me feel happy. Justice has been there.
It's so nice. Picking cherries out of that tree brought me back to, I've said this before, and I'll keep saying it, that the agricultural revolution was a mistake. All we should be doing is going out there and just picking berries off trees. That's peak existence, and nothing will ever compare. So thank you for that experience, because it's been truly formative.
It was pretty great, because Justice was wearing a cherry dress while we were picking cherries, so like...
Yeah, it was...
That's very meta.
It was
yeah.
thematic.
I have something for you guys, though, before we go. I wanted to show you. I was cleaning my house 6, and I found this tiny keychain camera.
Yes.
And I thought you probably had to have it. And then also, Justice said they don't have a vase. So Justice, I got you a vase.
Oh my goodness.
Aw.
The last time we talked, you said you don't have a vase, and I filled it with flowers from my garden.
Thank you.
Look
the
at
daisies you gave me last time are sitting in a, what you would usually put like a protein shake in.
As long as there's water, it'll work.
Oh yeah.
But I thought, you have to have a vase, so there you go. Now you have one.
Wow.
Thank you so very much.
This marks the first virtual presence we've gotten on this show. So you are now by far our favorite guest.
Absolutely.
Yeah, see? You've worked yourself up in 27 minutes from the lowest to the highest ranking guest. Well, she said you had to have some... Well, yeah. That's it. Christina, you were the lowest one coming in, and now you are the highest. Okay, I said it.
Perfect.
That's it. That's all. You didn't want to do this. You were all nervous. And look, the best one we've had yet. So
Great.
Go ahead, Six. Sorry.
No, I just, it is really nice to have you on this show, and I'm really glad that you did come on here and decide to share, because the fact is like on social media, you are generally pretty delightful to watch. You got a lot of energy. Last year, you were out there with a lot of the bike tours and a lot of that stuff that was going on around the city. So, not seeing you in at those events or doing those events, there's a little tiny missing Christina, and it's awesome to have you on our show, to be able to show other people too the little tiny things that you've been doing, the chicks in your backyard, the butterflies, the butterfly gardens, and you staying active. I think that it's great to know that there are people kind of with your energy level and positivity that are in the schools and that are teaching. So I know we didn't talk a lot about that, but it's really awesome the way that you do kind of bring some of your interests into teaching, into kind of a real life kind of educational experience. So thank you for all of that. Go ahead, Justice.
Before we log off and say our goodbyes, Bronwyn has a comment. She proves it again. Christina is the most helpful person on the planet, and I think that is a phenomenal sort of punctuation to this conversation. Christina, thank you again for joining us, and thank you to everybody who tuned in to Hypnic Jerks this morning.
Thanks,
Have a
guys.
wonderful day.
We'll see you later.
Bye.